Layla Khan walked into Rashid Al Mansoor's life like a dream draped in diamonds. But by sunrise, that dream turned into a nightmare soaked in blood. The crime scene presents a new page of crime, a new mystery, a new shock case. Rashid Al Mansoor's wedding was the kind of spectacle only Dubai could pull off. Gold-plated invitations, private jets flying in celebrities, and a venue that floated above the Persian Gulf like a mirage. The billionaire, infamous for his temper and obsession with perfection, had finally found a bride young enough to make the headlines blush. Layla Khan, a 25-year-old model from Karachi, looked flawless in her diamond-stitched gown, her every move captured by drones and paparazzi. She smiled like her life depended on it, because in some twisted way, it did. The world saw a fairy tale, the billionaire prince and his delicate queen, but behind those glass smiles, a storm was brewing. Rashid wasn't in love, he was in possession. He watched Layla not with tenderness, but calculation, his dark eyes tracing her every gesture like he was studying a prize he didn't fully trust. Layla had climbed the ladder of ambition fast, too fast, and though the cameras painted her as the luckiest girl alive, she knew how fragile that illusion was. Money and power wrapped her like silk, but that silk could strangle just as easily. As the night went on, fireworks exploded above the water, guests toasted to eternal love, and Rashid's grin grew tighter with every passing minute. The champagne tasted bitter in his mouth, and the whispers about Layla's past reached his ears like poison. He couldn't shake the thought that she was hiding something big. When Layla leaned into him for a photo, his hand on her waist wasn't affection, it was control. The world called it a union made in heaven, but for Rashid Al Mansoor, heaven had rules, and if those rules were broken, paradise could turn into hell before the wedding night was over. Layla Khan had built her life on careful lies wrapped in luxury. Before Rashid, she was a struggling model bouncing between fashion gigs, private parties, and hotel suites that blurred together in neon and perfume. Dubai was her escape, her second chance, a place where beauty could buy silence. When she met Rashid Al Mansoor, she knew what he wanted: purity, class, obedience, and she gave him the illusion of all three. Every glance, every word, every demure smile was rehearsed to perfection. But beneath her calm exterior, panic lived. She'd buried her past deep, especially her secret affair with a foreign investor she'd dated for money years before. Only one person still knew: Maya Al-Zahir, her best friend turned influencer, who loved Layla but envied her new crown. During the wedding frenzy, Maya's jealousy flared. She couldn't stand watching Layla become Dubai's new queen while she remained a shadow with followers. So, when she posted a casual selfie tagging one of their old acquaintances, she didn't realize she had just cracked the mirror Layla had worked so hard to build. The post went viral, reaching corners of the internet that should have stayed dead. By midnight, a message landed in Rashid's inbox. A collection of private photos from Layla's past, labeled with a single sentence: Asterisk, your bride isn't who she says she is. Asterisk. Rashid's phone screen lit up like fire, his ego exploding as he scrolled through the images. Downstairs, the music kept pounding, guests kept dancing, and Layla laughed without knowing her world had already fallen apart. Rashid's pride turned into a silent fury, his obsession with control tightening like a noose. The night wasn't about love anymore. It had become a waiting game between truth and violence, and Layla had no idea how close the storm really was. The penthouse suite glimmered like a palace in the sky, a place built for perfection but haunted by obsession. Rashid Al Mansoor stood at the edge of the glass balcony, the city lights reflecting off his eyes like fire trapped behind calm. Downstairs, the final guests were leaving, their laughter fading into the humid Dubai night. But inside Rashid's mind, the only thing echoing was betrayal. He couldn't unsee the photos, the proof that his bride wasn't the untouched angel she had claimed to be. His chest tightened with something darker than anger. It was humiliation. For a man like Rashid, image was everything. And now that image had been shattered by the one woman he thought he owned completely. The champagne glass in his hand cracked under pressure, shards slicing his palm, but he didn't feel it. He walked through the suite, past the scattered wedding gifts, the spilled perfume, the white dress she had changed out of hours earlier. Everything around him screamed purity, yet all he saw was deceit. He opened her phone, scrolling through old messages she thought she had deleted, piecing together a version of her that he didn't recognize. Bold, flirtatious, free. It disgusted him. By the time Layla entered the room, he was no longer a man but a ticking bomb dressed in designer silk. The silence between them was heavy, thick enough to choke on. Rashid's face was calm, but his mind was chaos, replaying every lie she had told, every word she had sugar-coated. The air conditioning hummed, the city glittered below, and yet inside that suite, time froze. Rashid's pride had been cut open, and something in him snapped. What followed wouldn't be passion or rage. It would be destruction, silent and precise, the kind that left no witnesses and no way back. The night turned deadly long before anyone realized it. The music downstairs had faded, the staff dismissed, and the massive penthouse lay buried in silence. Rashid Al Mansoor stood over his bride with eyes that looked more like a hunter's than a husband's. The rage inside him was cold, not loud. It wasn't a burst of emotion. It was methodical, controlled, almost deliberate. Layla tried to reach for calm, but Rashid's silence was far more terrifying than any scream. He moved like a man possessed, every gesture sharp, every step heavier than the last. The champagne bottle lay tipped over on the floor, the scent mixing with Layla's perfume and fear. When the first sound broke the quiet, a thud, a muffled cry, it was too late. Behind the locked doors, the fairy tale turned into a horror scene no one would dare interrupt. The walls were thick, the curtains drawn, the world outside blind to what unfolded inside. Hours later, the room was chaos, shattered mirrors, overturned furniture, a silk sheet stained crimson. Rashid sat in the middle of it all, motionless, staring at nothing. His breathing was shallow, his knuckles raw, his eyes hollow. Layla's body lay twisted beside the bed, her wedding jewelry still clinging to her like cruel irony. When Yusuf Karim, Rashid's trusted assistant, entered at dawn, the sight froze him. He knew better than to speak or question. Rashid's voice, barely above a whisper, ordered silence. No police, no calls, no statements. The billionaire's word was law, and Yusuf obeyed without hesitation. He called in the cleaners, men paid to erase sins for the wealthy. By sunrise, the suite looked untouched again. The blood was gone, the sheets replaced, the crime buried under marble and money. To the outside world, Layla Khan had simply fallen ill, but the truth was far more brutal. Her wedding night had become her execution. By morning, the chaos had been replaced with cold precision. Rashid Al Mansoor's empire knew how to hide a scandal before it was even born. His team moved like shadows, silent, disciplined, and ruthless. The villa was sealed, the staff escorted out, and every security camera feed was scrubbed clean within hours. Layla's body was wrapped in white silk and carried away under the disguise of a medical emergency. No one questioned it. In Dubai's elite circles, money didn't just talk, it erased. The morning news broadcasted a soft headline about Rashid's wife being hospitalized after sudden complications, while behind the scenes, Yusuf Karim was burning documents and bribing reporters. Rashid sat in his study, emotionless, his hand bandaged, but his ego intact. To him, the problem wasn't that Layla was dead. It was that someone had made him look like a fool. Meanwhile, Detective Omar Haddad, a man with a sharp mind and zero tolerance for corruption, caught wind of inconsistencies in the billionaire story. Something about the timing didn't add up. The hospital records were fabricated, the staff interviews rehearsed. The more Omar dug, the uglier it looked. Still, Rashid's influence was powerful. He had ministers, police chiefs, and businessmen in his pocket. Omar knew one wrong move could cost him his badge, or worse, his life. But the detective had seen too many women buried in silence to walk away now. He started collecting fragments, deleted surveillance footage, anonymous tips, whispers from servants too scared to speak aloud. Every clue pointed back to Rashid and Yusuf, tied together by money and fear. By the time night fell, the cover-up was airtight, but Omar had found his crack. A missing flight log showing Layla's body had been flown out of Dubai before any report was filed. It wasn't just a murder anymore. It was a ghost story written in blood and lies. Maya Al-Zahir hadn't slept since the news broke. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Layla's face, smiling, radiant, and now gone forever. The guilt twisted in her gut like barbed wire. She never meant to destroy her best friend. She just wanted the world to remember she existed too. But the detective's questions were getting harder to dodge. Omar Haddad had found the connection between Maya's late-night post and the digital trail that led straight to Rashid's meltdown. The tag name in her photo belonged to a man Layla had once been involved with, a name that resurfaced at the worst possible moment. Maya's small act of jealousy had started a chain reaction ending in murder. When Omar visited her sleek apartment overlooking Jumeirah Beach, he could see the cracks behind her perfect influencer mask. Her hands shook as she denied everything, but her eyes gave her away. Meanwhile, Yusuf Karim was cracking under pressure too. His phone records showed a call placed hours before the killing, to the same foreign contact who'd sent Rashid those damning photos. The pattern was clear. Someone had orchestrated this downfall from the shadows. But who stood to gain? Omar started piecing it together and realized Rashid might not have been the only one with blood on his hands. The payments between Rashid and Yusuf weren't hush money. They were instructions. Rashid had paid to have the truth exposed, not to protect his pride, but to destroy Layla the moment she became his wife. The wedding had been a setup from the start, a trap disguised as love. Maya's betrayal was the spark, but Rashid and Yusuf had built the bomb. Now, with the story unraveling, everyone involved was running scared. The empire of lies was crumbling, and Omar could almost hear the fall. Months passed, and Dubai had already moved on to its next scandal, but Detective Omar Haddad hadn't. The official report said Layla Khan died from a sudden heart condition, the kind of lie wrapped so neatly it almost looked like truth. Rashid Al Mansoor walked free, attending charity galas and posing for magazines as if nothing had happened. His empire sparkled brighter than ever, but behind those mirrored skyscrapers, a secret rotted in silence. Maya Al-Zahir fled to London, deleting her socials and vanishing from the influencer world entirely. Rumors said she'd been paid to disappear, but guilt doesn't stay quiet forever. Late one night, she sent Omar an anonymous email, a confession laced with fear. Attached was a bank transfer receipt linking Rashid's offshore account to Yusuf Karim, dated one day before the wedding. That was the break Omar needed. He followed the money trail through shell companies and encrypted ledgers until the truth surfaced. Yusuf hadn't just been cleaning up a mess. He'd been part of the plan. Rashid, obsessed with pride and purity, had ordered Yusuf to dig into Layla's past, to find proof that she wasn't the virgin bride he demanded. When Yusuf delivered the evidence, Rashid promised him a promotion and a fortune. But the plan spiraled when Layla's defiance triggered Rashid's uncontrollable rage. It wasn't a crime of passion, it was premeditated humiliation turned deadly. Yet justice in Dubai wore golden handcuffs. The case was quietly closed, the files sealed, and Omar was transferred to another department under the guise of restructuring. He knew he'd never see Rashid in handcuffs, but he also knew the truth had a way of resurfacing. The billionaire's spotless image began to crack. Anonymous leaks, whispered scandals, investors backing out. Layla's ghost lingered in every headline, every rumor, reminding Dubai that beneath the gold, monsters still ruled.